last plenary session on this conference. We are competing with the beautiful weather, and so we are very, very glad that you are here, still here. This is the last, as I said, the last presentation, the last plenary session, and the presenter, the speaker is Professor Goran Krajacic. I'm very glad to introduce him to you. He's an expert in energy fields, energy market, energy system optimization with a special focus on island and sustainability of island. And he's a professor at the Department of Energy, Power and Environmental Engineering of the Zagreb University, a member of the SDEWES local committee organization and since 2002. And he's also a secretary of the SDEWES Center since 2009. He's involved in many European projects, also national projects, on the development of local energy community, especially on island, energy storage technologies. He's currently coordinating the Zagreb University in the project Horizon 2020 on the maximization of the impact of innovative energy approaches in the European island. So we are very, very happy to be here to listen to his speech, which is about sustainability of energy system for efficient, clean energy transition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna Maria, on quite nice introduction. And I would like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. And for me, it's a great honor and privilege to give this speech. And maybe I will be a little bit emotional because, as you heard, this is after 20 years, I will make a first keynote speech in SDEWES conference. But before 20 years, I was a graduate student that was organizing this conference together with Professor Neven Dujic, Professor Maria de Grassa Carvalho, Professor Bogdan, and Professor Afgan. So for me, it's a great honor to be here, and I will not go so much to the history, but I will mention some of the research. And as I said, this conference and a series of conferences make my large part of my scientific career, and they are also made quite a big part of my life. I had the fortune to sit with the greatest minds of sustainable development, and this brings to me a really nice perspective, and I hope I will deliver some of these things to you now. So I will go through the basics of sustainability, maybe for water, energy, food nexus, which is now quite important. Then I will maybe wrap up some presentations from before regarding renewables. Then I will mention something about rethinking of EU, then repower, then some of our methods and methodologies for renew islands and smart islands planning, and then some ideas for efficient energy transitions, and finally I will mention some homework for technology value chains, which I found very important. So these are the basics. You know that these three elements consist and made every living organism, but also this is something that made our society flourish. So if you remove one of energy, water, or food, there is no life, but also can you imagine to live without any of this? And now we are in a process of establishing the links, connections. We need to see what they are there, and from your presentations and your work, I saw that there is plenty of these connections being identified, but we can say that, for example, energy and water are connected through hydropower production or cooling of thermal power plants, or energy, if we can produce water by desalination, or it's used for pumping, irrigation, and similar. Then water we can use for food production or biomass production, which is crucial, or from food we can get energy. They are competing for the land, for example, or if you have excess of energy and artificial lighting, you can also produce the food. So those are some of the basics. But what we know that society and people wants, it's a clean water, green, healthy or clean food, or maybe green energy. But is it green energy always beneficial for the society? That's why we have maybe a better definition of what is green energy. And in Europe, we are aiming to clean, affordable, and secure energy. This is something that we want to achieve, and then by many of indicators, we are defining what is clean, affordable, and secure. And this is just basics of our every society, our needs of our society. We know that there are so many, but the system is becoming more complex. If we are searching for sustainable development, we know that we need to include environment, society, and economy. Now things are really becoming complex, and we need to establish the links between all of these elements, and maybe somewhere in the middle we can find sustainable development. Of course, with every of your work, with every of your publication, we are closer to this sustainable to point of the center. But is there something missing here in this photo? Maybe you will say yes. We mean it's humans, or humans. Now we have 8 billion of them here, and if you want to just see how they want to live, maybe they want to be in the nice place as we, have a nice healthy food, etc., then multiply this with 8 billion, and then you will see that maybe it's not so easy task. So that's why we are still in the search of this sustainability and this sustainable development. I know that this is, let's say, we can identify it, we can maybe make it possible, but is it feasible? So this is something that we need to know. So at the end, in this, what we have, as 20 years ago, as a young researcher, now I still have a hope or vision that we will found this sustainable development. So I hope we will jointly go to this quest. So talking about vision or maybe hope to have this sustainable development, we were starting to investigate this power, water to power nexus. And for the moment, we were just investigating the one in Balkans related to water and power system with different models that are available. We can simulate this, but there are a lot of work to do. So if we are going to say about hope and renewables, we can see that and we heard from Professor Parligou that renewables are being built. And if we look to certain parts of the world, like Asia, we can see regarding the population, more or less they are in the share of renewables, which suits their per capita installation. Maybe North America and Europe are leading these installations, but if we go to the continent that will be the most influenced by climate change and where they need to apply the most of these renewables, they are still lagging behind. So it's our duty and maybe our obligation to help Africa to become a leader in this global renewable energy movement and also installation of renewables. But there is a hope. If we hear what yesterday Henrik told us, that investors are building these renewables, and here we can see that we are really building the renewables. The other sources of energy just have a share of 20%, so which means that industry and investors are building the renewables. So this is positive. But to have a hope, maybe we need a vision, and as Henrik said yesterday, we started this 100% renewable energy modeling, and we try to find the system that satisfies all its needs by from renewable sources. So we published several works on this topic, and then when we show it is possible for countries like Portugal or Croatia, North Macedonia in Balkans, then colleagues from California said, okay, we can also power the whole California with wind, water, and sunlight, which is quite okay, because California is the most developed place maybe in the world. So if they found out it's feasible, then maybe it gives a hope that everyone will do it one day. But then preparing for the COP in Paris, we also made our contribution. So we have bigger vision, maybe the bigger hope, and it was to build a zero carbon energy system for Southeast Europe. We found out that it is technically possible and feasible, and also economically viable. And after that, maybe colleagues from United States, from California, they said, okay, if they will make Balkans 100% renewable, maybe we can make the whole world 100% renewable. So this is something that also gives us hope, and we saw yesterday that Henrik with his group and many others made 100% renewable energy system analysis for whole European Union, but also many other countries. But talking about vision, maybe here on this figure we can identify the solar PV panels and solar installations from the satellites, and we can see that there is certain holes in this in European Union. So if there is no vision in some countries, maybe there are also no hope to be installed. But if we look what happened in 2021, we see that they installed quite large installations in Netherlands, Germany, or Spain. But according to Professor Karligou, this was just maybe 1, 2, or 3 large PV plants in China. So this is something that can be explained also like this. But of course, there are many distributed things. But you can see that in France or Poland or Croatia here in Balkans, there are quite many space that there is no solar. So, okay, in France and Poland, they start to invest in this. They are not making it like Netherlands or Germany, but in Croatia, we see that the progress is quite slow. So, this is something that we need to improve, and that's why we are now in a process of repowering EU and making these things happen. Or if we compare this similar to the wind turbines installed in over Europe, we can see that there are really some leaders in this and also countries where there is eventually no wind blowing. So in Croatia we have some of these capacities installed, but as you can see, Denmark or Ireland, they are quite advanced in this, and this is also something that will be now approached by Repowering EU. And if we calculate some of the targets that are in front of us, we see that we will need to install almost 4 to 5 times more capacity in Croatia, but also countries like Germany, Portugal, Austria will need to go to these numbers if we are dividing the numbers of planet capacity by population in European Union. And there are good wind potentials. So here for presentation I just make a normalization of production, of real production from wind turbines in Denmark, Portugal, and Croatia. And you can see that even the Portugal and Croatian ones are onshore wind production is better than in Denmark. But then Denmark has a quite nice potential and production from the offshore wind power plants, and that's why they are planning to build and install quite large capacities in the future in offshore wind. But if we were making things if we will satisfy all our needs from energy by wind, we need to know that there is seasonality, and maybe the countries will not be able to help each other, because when wind is blowing in Western Europe, it almost blows everywhere, but then during the summer we don't have so many of wind, or here you can see the Greece is in quite favorable position, but during the summer we have solar energy, so this is something that can be also taken into account. So how we will do this? In front of us there are several initiatives, but let's go back in the future, and this is why I would like to admire and thank Professor Carvalho for her vision on post-carbon society. And since Professor Carvalho is a researcher and politician, she also had this vision to make post-carbon society, and which will be built and based on renewable energy sources, on buildings as positive power plants, on energy storage and smart grids and electrification and plug-in or electric hybrid vehicles. And this was in 2009, so I think if we lost almost 10 years. Why? Because we didn't push for this vision too much, but also at the same time there was a vision on 100% renewable energy for European Union. We're thinking 2050, which gave us some of directions. So, but why we didn't do it? It's another question. So, what is in front of us? We heard that we need to go to REPowerEU plan, and this is something now that is in negotiation. But we heard that maybe 45% of our energy will be satisfied by the renewables, which is quite a big achievement or target. As in numbers, this means 600 gigawatts of solar PV installed in European Union, and almost 510 gigawatts of the wind energy, which is, you saw some of the numbers, but compared to the solar installations, we will need around 1.3 kilowatts of installed power per capita, which is more than Netherlands and Germany that has now quite large numbers. So this is something that we need to install until 2030, and you heard that 5% of this energy should be from innovative technologies and alternative sources. But how we go to these renewables and how we go to these targets, we developed simple methodology. So it can be applied very efficiently to any of the systems. First, you need to map your needs, all, not just energy, but all commodities. Then you need to map your resources. And then you see, for example, renewable sources, this is quite known because we, as I show you, we can measure from satellite every PV panel, every wind turbine, but we can also establish very good potentials on any of our resources, from precipitation, wind speed, solar resources, etc. So then you're approaching to see what are feasibilities of technologies which can use your resources to satisfy needs. Then you need to store things and see what are feasibilities of storage. And finally, you need to integrate flows of energy or other resources like water, etc. Then you devise scenarios, approach to the modeling with different models, optimization, and you can build your systems and see how it's going. So now we approach to the developing of this Renew Islands methodology, and we make it as a Smart Island methodology. How? By providing the indicators that can automatically calculate certain values and then propose scenarios and make flow integration. This is Smart Islands methodology is published now in several papers, but also we are working more on these issues. We are developing planning, energy planning of islands. We are soft linking models for capacity expansion, but also working on demand response, on flexibility options, and for example on maritime transport electrification, which is now quite important if we want to make decarbonization of our transport system. Then, going from modeling to the real life, we have there are islands which doesn't have just models and but also the vision for sustainable and climate-friendly islands like Bornholm, which won the prize as a first responsible island in Europe. This is island in Denmark, and they are famous because they managed to decarbonize their power production on the island, but also heat production, and now they are looking for transportation. They are involved this island as a good case study in a project in Sula, and now they are testing there several methods for decarbonization of transport, but they try to optimize the charging of electric vehicles through advanced energy management of the battery systems and operation of PV plants to reduce the grid capacities, grid exchange, and maximize the benefits from the PV plant. Similar on the Bornholm, they are also developing virtual power plants, which will allow them to run the island in island mode when they are disconnected from the mainland. But what is more important now in Bornholm, they have new momentum, and as you heard yesterday from Henrik, they are in Denmark. They are building quite a lot of offshore wind power plants, and here near the Bornholm, they identified more than 20 gigawatts of potential location for offshore wind power plants, and currently they are being built. What is interesting that the island is now competing to make high voltage direct current substation on the island to utilize some of the waste heat, which will be available so they can use it in their system. So in the same project, we have a small island in Croatia where we are trying to investigate the connections between water and energy system, and we are now powering desalination plant by PV system, but also colleagues from company Ericsson, Nikola Tesla are developing IoT platform and blockchain for future energy communities on island. This is now being researched, and we expect many publications that will be published in the next Davis conference. But there are also many islands in the world as a SAMSO that make like pioneer island in decarbonization, but also in democratization of the energy system. Also in Denmark, you can see there are quite many of islands in Denmark that win this renewable energy, responsible energy island prize, and one of them it's island of Aro, which was famous because they built the biggest wind power plant on that island in '85, but also they built the biggest solar thermal power plant at that time on the island in the decarbonization of their district heating system. And now what they also managed to do is they built electric ferry on the island, which is quite nice way of decarbonization of transport, but also achievement for the small island. Regarding the decarbonization of transport, we try to see what will be the possibility of electrification. And in this publication, we found out that transport can be switched to electricity, like 72% can be electrified, but for this we need additional calculations, as Henrik said, that distribution and maybe transmission systems need to be expanded. And we are coming to the island of El Hierro, which is also a very nice lighthouse and something about sustainability. This island is famous because it has a pumped hydro power plant, and which enabled the island to run 100% of renewable sources for more than a month. So island that was fully it was made from the all the needs were satisfying by the diesel. So, and in this way, they managed to remove from the diesel to almost 100% renewable. Of course, now they managed to reach 54%, and they are aiming to 80%. But what is good with this solution, that they have connected. They have plans to connect the pumped hydro with desalination, which will allow them to become 100% renewable. And also there is the island of Tilos that has also won the many prizes for being one of the famous spots and for a new decarbonization. So if we go from the islands to the country, we can see that there is also hope that we can build our power systems and run them on 100% renewables. So we can see that here we have one day in Croatia that was fully satisfied. Production was based on renewable sources, so it comes from wind onshore, solar generation waste, geothermal biomass, and no hydro, but no fossil fuels. And this is something that we need to think in the future. If we want to decarbonize our planet, we need to do it from the cities, because cities only occupy 2% of this our surface, but there is 50% of population and consume more than 75% of energy and are responsible for 80% of CO2 emissions. So how we will manage to do this energy transition? We know that we need to go for decentralization, decarbonization, which is now really in progress. We need to diversify our sources, as we can see in Croatia or many islands that using so many different sources. Then deregulation and democratization is quite important, because we need to make markets that will produce right signals to investors, but also we need to democratize our energy system, that everyone is capable to produce, store, and sell electricity. Then we are going to decoupling, which is now been done in many of countries by decoupling the use of fossil fuels and increasing the GDP. And finally, digitalization we have as a holy grail of future energy transition. So here is something that we also mentioned from a strategic approach, and I'm glad that here is the lady that was there from the beginning of this project and working very hard on, let's say, putting so many district heating systems in Europe. And here we have an example of a decentralized generation in Austria or Denmark. And what is important that in Denmark, so in these systems, as Henrik explained yesterday, we are then capable to integrate many of heat technologies. And for example, this solar heating is very popular with seasonal storage in Denmark. but not so popular in the rest of Europe. But now, with the current situation, I think we will need more of this in every corner of Europe. And finally, if we go for digitalization, as I said, this can be something that will provide fast transition. It will be present everywhere, and we can utilize this to make things, to speed things, and not just for the planning, but also for forecasting and for development of future energy systems. And finally, I would like to say something about these technology value chains. This is not our publication, but I found it very useful, which says that if we are going to fast energy transition, we will save 12 trillion of US dollars. But what is more important, that they made really a nice analysis, empirical one, on technology value chains and development of technologies. So this is something that we are missing in many of our calculations. Why? Because if we don't have factories installed, or we don't know exactly how technology will develop, let's say, to forecast the real learning curves, then not a lot of things will happen, as we see from current development. So with this, I would like to conclude. So we know that the way that we are going is unsustainable, and our energy systems need to be transformed from the ground, because and adequate energy planning is the key to success. What we can see from current developments in the last 20 years, I would say that this sustainable development is too slow. We need to speed up. And for this, we need to have politicians that have clear vision of energy system of the future based on reliable cost and achievable and reasonable targets. The prices of energy and fuels must include all costs, not just market costs, but also costs, for example, of security of supply, cost of external cost, etc. This is something that should be done. We need to speed up innovation, and this is why you are here, because innovation is something that will bring new technologies, and for sure that we have many of technologies that are available for building 100% renewable system, but many of them are still in some technology readiness level that is below commercialization. We need to think about our power systems to be flexible, and digitalization, as we saw from many presentations, is the key to achieve that, from the buildings to the neighborhoods to the cities and the continents. Technology value chains should be really studied and determined for future development. And finally, smart islands, energy communities and cooperatives may play the key role in the decarbonization, because they can show us the way how to do it. Because if we cannot make small island or one of these 100 cities that want to be decarbonized, that like Limassol, I think there is no future. So we need pilots, we need a good example, but these 100 cities that want to be carbon neutral until 2030 will definitely provide us many valuable information on decarbonization. So with this, I would like to thank you for your attention, and would encourage you for the quest to sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Krajacic, for your engaging presentation. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience, so you are quite shy. Maybe I can start with a question, because I really liked a lot the best practices that you introduced us, with particular focus on island and sustainable island. But from your experience as a scientist, also as a head of energy management, power engineering and energy management chair, what do you think are the most important limitations, maybe also financial, to the implementation of energy and renewable technologies in our countries, starting from Croatia and also from other European countries?
Yeah, as I explained, I think the currently most important measure is to speed up deployment of solar photovoltaics, which can be done both on the integrated in the buildings, but also on the landfills. This is something that we need to do, and to speed up process of licensing, which is quite long in the European Union. For example, in Croatia, in average, you need 10 years to get permits for the wind power plant, or 5 years to get a permit for the solar power photovoltaic plant. And for the, let's say, technologies and facilities that can be built in several months, which is so this is something that for sure we can speed up with digitalization, and maybe with this new initiative REPowerEU, which will go for the simplification of process of issuing the permits. Also, we can put a lot of, as I said, integrated PVs on the roofs if this will be automatized process from distribution system operator, market operator, etc. And then we are coming to maybe things that are now popular and what the European Union is pushing so much. It's energy community. So people will be able to share, produce, store their own energy, and this also can be really automatized and given, with several applications you can do really fast. But as you can see from Croatian case study, we are really Mediterranean country, and if you will come or you were in Croatia, you know that we have a lot of sun. But this is not shown in installations. Why? Because there were, in these 20 years, so many barriers in front of us from small installations to big one. And you can see the results. So the barriers were everywhere. If we didn't do anything, so we should be somewhere in the middle average. But you can see that they were effectively stopped this deployment of solar PVs. For wind, it's not so bad, but it was also present.
Yeah, for wind turbines.
Yeah, we have around 1,000 megawatts of installed capacity, which show that some of locations had, as I showed, better potential than on-site locations in Denmark, which is quite good. And now we are thinking also about developing of offshore wind, which is quite huge potential in Adriatic, maybe not good as in North Sea, but it's still present. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Any question from the audience? Please. Please, would you like to introduce yourself before asking the question? Thank you very much.
It's two of us, yeah? Okay. Petar Varbanov from Brno University of Technology. A simple one. All these strive for 100% renewable. It's excellent as a target. But if you are about to achieve it, obviously you need some storage. So what's the storage, energy storage they applied in those islands? On those islands, and what energy storage technologies you would foresee, say, for Croatia, Central Europe?
Okay.
If not technically justified, what's your feeling about it?
Yeah, so now we can see that battery storage is deployed on smaller islands, and but we also have this pumped hydro technology which is available, and it's traditional technology. We heard that it was quite expensive one in the range of, if you remember the diagrams from Henrik, you can have a pump hydro is around the cost of your electric boiler in a household, yeah, small one. But for example, in France, they are having currently 8 gigawatts of these small boilers started by the frequency control from the grid. So I believe that if we are talking about electricity storage, in any case we need to see how much we need to deploy, but there are synergies with the other sectors, as we heard yesterday. So there is a big hope in transportation, which will allow us to, with the smart charging, we can reduce the need for this storage, but also there is possibility to store heat, or what is more important now, under the let's say, climate change adaptation, we need to maybe also think about this pumped hydro option, not primary for the energy storage, but also maybe more for the water storage. And this is something that should be connected to desalination plants. Yeah, because, for example, currently even on Croatian Adriatic islands, you can see that large parts are without precipitation. So I think if this will continue, we will need to even provide water for wildlife, not just population, because you can see that we are losing the biodiversity because of these long periods without precipitation. So then we heard heat storage, which should be utilized, but for that we need to have district heating developed, like in Denmark, in these urban regions where demand is high and we have a potential to install it. It's not feasible, economically feasible in many suburbs of rural regions, but for that we have heat pumps with smaller storages, and there we found out, you know, the battery or and plus some storage of heat. Yeah. So this is something that is coming, and what I believe that, in my opinion, we will need long-term storage only for the security reason. There will be cheap electricity coming from the North Africa, but you don't want to be blackmailed by anyone in future. This is my opinion. So we should have developed energy security before anything else. So this is something that we should integrate in the price of electricity. We know how to do it. Taxation is a very efficient way to make things. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, the next.
So, let me introduce myself. I'm Tomás Gómez from Technical University of Valencia. Thank you for your presentation. My question is regarding resources and waste, because we agree with you that distributed energy generation can help to improve our design of society, so that we have more democracy, more resilience, more autonomy, etc. But then, working for the City Council of Valencia in Spain, we've been asked to develop a model for the waste that is expected out of all these distributed power systems, and also to think in terms of risk of supply of some materials for the markets of this. So I would like some comments on this from you, please.
Okay, regarding the materials, I think we also heard this from one of the panels and professor from Neven, that we are now living in circular economy, and we should import as much as possible resources now when we have financial capital to do that. And then these materials we can recycle and keep in our systems for a longer time. But this should be an issue, and as I said, now the trade between certain regions is still based on, let's say, some agreements, and there are no danger to maybe this to be in future jeopardized. But in my opinion, we need to make a circular economy. And this is something that also can be supported by digitalization, because we will have QR codes and everything everywhere. And I think logistics centers, someone who is selling equipment or any goods, should be responsible also for the recycling and also, let's say, waste management, which can be really done. If we cannot sort waste and make it, advanced waste management system, I think as a community, or we are not ready to go to the next step. This is something that can be done, and now in Zagreb we have good examples that we start to recycle waste, separate waste, etc. And this will be done, I think, also in advanced options. But I think we need also to put the pressure on the people that are selling this on markets, supermarkets, etc. Because as we heard from some presentations, you have empty trucks coming and going. Why shouldn't they can take some of this waste and deliver where it's necessary?
Thank you. I know that we have a question from Zoom, so please.
Yes, we have a question from Hasret Sabin. He asked, I would like to learn about how PV prosumer progress. Do you think that in the future global energy mix, we can reach 20 to 30% of total solar generation globally? Most of these scenarios are more fixed to the improvement on the end user side. Could you provide your insights?
Okay, I think it's feasible. Currently, we are getting in Denmark 50% of energy from wind electricity, so 20% of solar can be achieved. So this is something that even with it will depend on the price of solar PV. So we can also regulate some system if they will be cheap. So you can disconnect part of it. So running it on the half of capacity provides you opportunity to ramp up or ramp down for a certain amount. So this is something that, but it will be determined by the price and the technology development, and it seems that this will be really cheap source. So maybe it will go even above these numbers. Of course, if we make some kind of storage technologies or long-term e-fuels or etc. So this is something that can be done.
Thank you very much. No other question from Zoom? No, at the moment. I would like to ask you something, if I may, because you touched very important topics. One of these is the energy democracy, and the other one is the need to include all costs in energy. Let's say safety, sometimes also health. Have you already done some studies about this? Have you already planned to propose some models about how to include all these costs in the energy cost?
Yeah, I think that some countries like Germany or Denmark are examples, because the electricity there was not cheap for the households, but it's taxed, and you can have money for development and research, etc. So this is how we can do it, and that's why, for example, the solar thermal collectors and solar district heating with seasonal heat storage is quite advanced in Denmark, because even they have not so good solar radiation, they had the high prices of heat. So you were able to save the money by installing this technology. So they were paying the real price of natural gas if you take into account security of supply. In Croatia, we couldn't develop this technology. Why? Because the natural gas was always cheaper than this technology that can replace it. So that's why we were not paying the real price. Energy security was not taken into account. Similar to some external costs, for example, if we are driving cars that are producing pollutants and this is damaging our health, who is paying for the sick people? Everyone. But the polluter should pay, so we can easily calculate the tax that should be put on every polluter. Yeah.
You also have mentioned transportation, so the energy efficiency of transportation. Would you like to tell us something more about this?
Yes, as we were doing these calculations, we want to see how much of this can be electrified, and then the rest can be done with the synthetic fuels or some other ways that are coming. But in my opinion, future also on transportation is on individual, let's say, automated vehicles that can be on air or sea, etc. Because the nature of people, not even in densely populated regions where we have more efficient ways of transport, but if we will be able to provide people cheap individual transportation, I think they will go for that in several years. We have now seen that drones are coming, etc. So this is something that will be
very, very important. Yeah, for sure. Neven, please.
Denmark is generally not considered as a very sunny place, but they have solar district heating, quite developed in smaller places. Germany is not considered a sunny place also, but they have a huge share of photovoltaics. I wonder how is that Croatia, which is quite sunny place, has so little PV and very little solar thermal. What happens? Also, we are situated on one of the best geothermal resource for heating, but we heat our homes with gas, which is piped 4,000 kilometers to reach us. What is your take? Why these barriers? What happened?
I think the first one is, as I said, economical. So if you subsidize the electricity or heat on the one side, there are no incentives to make savings or to switch the fuel. Then another one is barriers, because the company maybe that was in possession of this information on geothermal potential did not want to develop this further because it had profit from selling the gas, oil, etc. So I think also, as I said, natural gas was cheap at the point. We know, it seems now that we know why it was so cheap. But also as someone who will sell the natural gas on the market, I will always sell with, on the marginal cost that any technology cannot take your share. So this was a logical decision. But that's why we needed more incentives from the government, but also the regulatory agencies, which I think failed here. From Ingo's answer regarding solar district heating in Germany, we heard maybe it's not suitable for the large cities because of the space, but we had examples that they wanted to build the largest solar district heating in the city of Graz in Austria, and it's not so difficult to find some places. We have this place also in Zagreb, but as I said, it was not economical because of the low price of natural gas. And now with the new cost of natural gas, with the emission trading system that will also include natural gas, I think this will be feasible and technology that could provide us at least 40 to 80% of the heating in district heating systems. This is the numbers that we were calculating from the several examples. So,
if I may add something, I mean, also following the question of Neven, is that human, you put human at the center of the star with all this point connected to food, water, all the costs that we have for living. No? Human is very important, and education is very, very important. And one of the meaning of this conference for sure is sharing, science sharing, so improving the level of knowledge. So I believe that it's going to be something very useful, not only for us as scientists, but also for mankind, because we are going to need to develop to progress in the right way, in a safe way, in a healthy way. So if we don't have any question, maybe we can close this plenary session. I would like to thank again Professor Krajacic, and thank you very much for attending the plenary session.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Please don't go anyway because the weather is nice outside, but you have the closing ceremony now. So just 1 minute and we can start with the last part. Yeah, we can take a photo, yeah.
We will take it later.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Let's move on to close this. Thank you. To close this, to my opinion, very good and very well organized conference. I will say a few words for closing down, then I will pass the floor to Professor Duic to say a few words about the future, for the next paper submission things and the next conference coming next year. Right. First of all, you'll probably all agree with me that this was a very nice and well-organized event. I, of course, will say, okay, you say good words because it's in your home. No, I talk as a participant myself as well, and I think it was one of the best organized conferences I've ever been. And not because it was made in Cyprus, but because it was so. Okay, the weather made us a good favor because in other cities of Cyprus these days were very much rain, too much rain. In Limassol and Nicosia it was almost flooding. Here we only have it on Monday. That was a good one, a good thing to happen. So I hope you enjoy also the weather and the environment around. So, okay, these are the organizers. You already know them from the beginning of when we show the initial presentation. These are the sponsors, a lot of European companies as you see here. A little bit of numbers now, just to show how the extent of this. Actually, when we start thinking about this, we thought that we may have 80 or 100 people participating, and in fact we will have 350 minus one. So 349 on-site participants, another 47 online participants, 52 countries, six continents, so it's really an international event. 330 papers were presented on-site orally, 34 regular, 14 special sessions, 4 plenary lectures and 2 panels. I think all these numbers make a very, very good and very successful, I would say, conference. A total of 500 papers presented online in 39 regular and 14 special sessions. And we have also 9 oral presentations that were not carried out because of various reasons. Also we have one live side event. Okay, these are the people you probably met all these days. Yes, please, the organizers can stand up. Being the local chair, I must say that you did a wonderful job in organizing and taking care of all requests that arise during these days. So thank you also from my side as well. Okay, not closing yet.
That's for me.
Yeah. Take over. Yeah. Okay. So that's all from me. Looking forward to see you next year in Dubrovnik.
But before I take over, we discovered Cyprus as the island of Zivania, which is excellent drink. So we brought you a Zivania from Croatia. It's actually not Zivania, it's made of pears.
Okay, I see.
And the pear, how the pear got in.
Yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, so we put the bottle on the flower, and then the pear grows inside the bottle.
Oh, really?
And then when the pear is big, it's cut, and pear brandy is put inside. So I hope you will enjoy Croatian type Zivania.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to thank again Professor Soteris, who helped us really very much with this conference. It's not easy to organize a conference in a foreign country. You need to have a very strong local person, and his name was Opening Doors. He helped us with local players who organized this conference, and I think you were quite satisfied also with the social part. And now the hard part. Now let's get back to work. This conference is not closing with a closing session. We still continue for one full week of work. All of you have pre-recorded presentations. If you not, then we cancel it. These presentations are open for questions until Thursday midnight Cyprus time. So you can still put questions to authors. Why do we keep it open 1 week later? So that you can enjoy the on-site conference, also network, mingle, and have fun. But now you have to go back to work, and you want to see those presentations that you didn't manage to see during this week. And you want to ask maybe some questions. So please do that. And then authors are obliged to answer those questions. Can you imagine a situation? I talk here, like Goran, I talk, and then somebody puts me a question and I just walk away. I don't answer it. It's not acceptable that authors do not answer the question put to them at the online virtual platform. So I hope we have understanding. We cancel. We always cancel a couple of papers because some people tend not to understand that we are a serious conference. We expect from authors to be also serious. So then there is even more after the real closing of the conference next Friday. We have partnership with many journals, and we will then start the process of publishing good papers from this conference in those journals. So let me go a little bit into the procedure. First step, we will send invitation to authors to rank the journals, not according what you think is the best journal. That's not the ranking. It's according to where do you think your paper would have the biggest chance of being accepted. So think about your paper, about the scope of the journal. It's not easy. You have to apply game theory on that. It's quite complicated science. The Q1 journals get oversubscribed. So they usually receive at least double, sometimes triple number of authors who rank them as the first rank. And then the editors will select the papers they think will fit into the journal. So if you don't get selected in the rank 1, and there is a chance, don't put necessarily as rank 2 the top journal because it might already get filled in at the rank 1 selection. So think about this. It's a complicated game. We don't publish everything in Q1 journals. I know this is something which would you like, but the life is not only on the top. If you did the top paper, then this is going to be recognized by editors and you will be invited to Q1 journals. If not, there are other journals. We have Q2, Q3. We have also startup journals. Think about your publishing strategy in the right way. It is also crucial that once you receive the invitation letter, you decide quickly. Do not wait for us to remind you. If you're not happy with the invitation to the journal, you can decline. Just decline and editors may invite then somebody else. Or accept, because if you don't accept, we will cancel your invitation. It's not open forever. It's only open for a short period of time. So please respond quickly and diligently. And what I noticed that better journals get better response from authors. Be kind to other researchers and decline if you don't like the journal. Don't just ignore the email. please. And then the critical thing is that you should actually read the invitation letter, not just see the name of the journal and click on the link where to submit it. Then you get rejected for sure. You should read the whole email. There is a lot of significant information there, which was prepared in cooperation between editor-in-chief, guest editors, and us at SDEVES. And these information are critical for the acceptance of your paper in a special issue. Also, there is a link to guidelines. Please read the guidelines. You have, if you never published in that journal, read the guidelines. Every journal is different. There is no single publishing policy. So you have specific rules for each journal. I don't even remember them sometimes in all journals where I'm a member of the editorial board. So you can't remember them. You have to read them when you submit your paper. If you fail to do that, you might have the paper rejected in pre-screening, which is so bad. You know, you invested so much into this paper and you get rejected because you didn't really read the guidelines. The critical thing, okay, the methods and the results is something that is coming out of your research. But when you write introduction, this introduction should be journal related, because you have to prove in this introduction also why your paper is part of the scope of that journal. So think about it. Rewrite your introduction. Make it you have to prove that it is in the scope and how it relates with the knowledge previously published in that journal. This is very important. And please don't ask for extensions. You will have 30 days to submit the paper. So be ready. Mostly it's from, let's say, 2 weeks from now, and then until maybe end of January. So have some time in this period to submit the paper. Because we have to deliver special issues on time. We have contracts with journals, and we cannot just extend this time. Different journals have different policy, but generally we have no liberty to extend this time. So, regarding the conference proceedings, what you have received on your USB sticks is a draft conference proceedings. In 2 weeks' time, the final conference proceedings will be available for participants to download from COMET of the SDEVES conference. We consider that to be work in progress. It is just for your peruse. It's not published. Why do we do it like that? Because we want that you publish your papers in journals. We don't want to spend your good quality material on a conference proceedings. That's why we don't publish conference proceedings. But then think about the following. If you put your paper to your university repository, then it's done. Then it cannot be anymore published in the journal. Finished. So don't do that. The repositories are okay once you submit it to the journal, then you can put there, if you really need to, a preprint to the journal paper. But if you mention that this is the paper published at the conference, then you consider this paper to be published at the conference, and it means you give up all the rights to further publish it. We don't take copyright from authors. Copyright stays with you. So you are allowed to do whatever you want with your papers that you presented here, but think what you actually want to do. Because if you do it by mistake, put it on a repository, then sorry, we can't help you at that. Also, please consider our journal of sustainable development of energy, water, and environment systems. We have information which is public that Clarivate will give it impact factor in 23. We'll see. You're never sure until you see it. But all the journals which are in emerging science citation index are planned to be given impact factor in 23. So we hope to see, are we going to get into Q2 or Q3? This is somewhere where we are according to our calculation. Site score is in 78 percentile, so it's actually Q1 on the site score, but this is Scopus. And then let's talk about future. The next year conference is in Dubrovnik. No dates. Okay, Marco, no dates. 24th to 28th of September, if I'm not wrong, but you can go and Google if we have connected it. Yes, it is connected, so you can now Google, and you can see Dubrovnik conference is already on, and I think we will open call for papers in a few weeks' time. So it's already time to think about your next abstract and coming to Dubrovnik in September. Have more science and more fun with SDEVs. And then just as for dreaming about the future, what we are thinking about 24 are organizing several regional conferences, starting in January, February in Chile, and then going to around Easter to Gold Coast, and then in May to Montenegro, Budva probably, and then maybe, who knows, in June to Toronto to start a new series, and then as a big grand finale, all the ways go to Rome, coming to Rome. There are question marks because not everything is set, but these are the possible locations to dream about 24. So plan in your projects, lot of budget for SDEVs conference participation in 24. And with this, I would like to ask Soteris to close the conference.
Okay, you're the boss. Yeah. What more to say? Just to wish you all a safe return back home. Thank you very much for being here. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do, both the scientific part and also the cultural part, and I wish you all the best. Nothing more, nothing less. See you. Maybe we'll consider Cyprus again in a few years' time to return back. As we have a good success with these numbers, I think we're thrilled, and imagine that China is closed also. If we have another 100 people from China, then it's going to be a breakthrough, I think, to the SDEVs series.
I think now you discovered Cyprus in November. Yeah. When it's cold in Europe, come here. It's cheaper.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for the day.
There is just a quick group photo of
Okay.
all the